This programme is in response to hundreds of requests for a programme on low fat.
First of all, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the ingredients. If you're going to cook these recipes, it's quite nice to have some ingredients handy. And one of the things is in the dairy section, because dairy is probably the most guilty of providing fat, there are now lots of really good alternatives you can use. One is this one, which is 0% Greek yogurt. 0% means no fat at all, and that's a lovely creamy yogurt. This one is also Greek yogurt, and this has 5% fat, so that's a good one. This is quark. We used this when we did low-fat scrambled eggs, so that's a good one. And here we've got low-fat creme fraiche. It's still quite high in fat, but every now and again a little bit of low-fat creme fraiche is useful in cooking. This one is a very special ingredient, and I've used quite a lot of this one. It's fromage frais. It's got 8% fat, which is quite a small amount, and it's also lovely for spreading onto bread. So if you want the dairy flavour and you want the moistness, then it's really nice to spread that on bread. I always do when I'm on a diet. Then we've got our good old friend cottage cheese here, the friend of dieters. Bit boring, but you can jazz it up, with chives and lovely herbs and things. And then this one, very good ingredient, we're going to be using that in a minute. This is buttermilk, which is low fat, but has all the lovely dairy flavours. And this one is the alternative to cream for dieters. This one is called evaporated milk, light evaporated milk. And quite an unusual ingredient, that one, but very, very good for low fat cooking. There's a few oriental ingredients here. Although this is oil, it's toasted sesame oil, and it's got a lovely sort of toasted flavour, and you only need a tiny bit to give you lots of flavour. Soy sauce is brilliant, so is Thai fish sauce. And this one here, I've used a lot of this one. This is brown rice wine, and that's excellent in cooking. And just a little tip for those of you who, when you're on a diet, you want something savoury. This is Japanese miso soup, and it comes in little squidgy sachets. And you just snip the top off, pour it into a mug with boiling water, and it's got some lovely oriental flavours there, and you really feel you've had something good. So there's a few ingredients for you to have in your store cupboard while you're dieting. Now we're going to move on and make a recipe. And the recipe I want to show you is a wild mushroom risotto. Now that's going to cause a lot of you to wrinkle your brows and say, how can you have a risotto that's low fat? No butter, no cheese, no cream, but you can. Now what you do first of all is you start off with 8 ounces of any mushrooms at all. And you can sometimes buy packs now of mixed mushrooms, that'll do. Or if you don't want mixed mushrooms, you can just use 8 ounces of one kind of mushroom. What I've got here are yellow girolles. These are called pied bleu, blue feet. Not a nice name, but a very nice mushroom. These are chanterelles with little stalks. And then here I've got chestnut mushrooms and shiitake mushrooms. 8 ounces is what you need in the recipe, and then you just wipe them with damp kitchen paper and chop them quite roughly. But that's not the whole story, because there's one more type of mushroom, very special, and that's dried porcini mushrooms. And here they are. These are from Italy and have the most wonderful flavour, particularly when they're dried. Now this is 8 ounces of fresh mushrooms and ½ ounce of dried porcini. And what happens to the porcini is they go into a bowl, and then you pour in a pint of water, boiling water, and then they're soaked for ½ an hour and they swell up. So you can see here now they've got a lot bigger now. Then you drain them, reserve the liquid, and chop them quite finely. Now we'll move on to the next part of the recipe, and in my jug here, this is Madeira. This is 7 fluid ounces of Madeira. So if you're not using any fat, it's really nice to have something full of flavour to put with the mushrooms. And what happens is you chop 2 shallots. You put them into a saucepan with the 7 ounces of Madeira, and then you just let the shallots sweat and till they're sort of cooked, and the Madeira is reduced down to just 2 tablespoons. And you can see there that there's hardly any of the Madeira left, but the flavour of it is really concentrated. So what you do then, we've got the mushrooms already chopped here, and so we just put those in with the shallots and the Madeira, and then just give that a little stir so that all the mushrooms are tossed around in the lovely essence of Madeira, and then they're mingled with the shallots. Right, now we're going to take that over to the rice. And what I've got here, we're going to make an oven-baked risotto, which is the simplest way to make a risotto. And what I've got already measured out in my baked oven dish is carnaroli rice. This is a special rice that risotto is made with, and it has lovely fat grains that when they're cooked, they sort of release a lovely creaminess. So carnaroli rice there. Then what we're going to do is now just add the mushrooms to the rice. And then the porcini mushrooms that have been soaked and drained and then chopped quite finely are going to go in as well. And then I'm just going to give it a mix, just to mix all the mushrooms with the grains of rice, just to get them all mingled together. And then the liquid we're going to use is the soaking water from the mushrooms. Remember the pint of hot water that went onto the porcini. And you can see after half an hour, the colour has changed and all the lovely flavours are in there, so that'll be in the risotto as well. And then here I've got 7 fluid ounces of the light evaporated milk, and I'm just going to put in the soaking water, give it a little whisk, and then pour it over the rice and mushrooms to evenly all over. And then it's going to need a good seasoning, some freshly milled pepper and some salt. And then that's going to be popped into the oven. Now the oven is quite low, it's 150 degrees. Goes in for 20 minutes, put a timer on, it's quite helpful there. Then after 20 minutes, just give it a little stir around, put it back in for another 20 minutes, and after that, you're going to have a brilliant risotto. What I'm going to do now is show you a recipe for marinated chicken brochettes. And what we're going to do first of all is make the marinade, and in my bowl here I've got 6 fluid ounces of buttermilk. One of the things that I've discovered, if you want to marinate something and you don't want to use any oil, then buttermilk is the answer. Great breakthrough. And then I'm going to add a crushed clove of garlic, and I've got the garlic with my pestle and mortar here, and I'm going to add half a teaspoon of sea salt, and then just smash the garlic, and then just mix it to a puree with the salt. And I've done this before on how to cook, but it's quite nice to be reminded of actually the best way to crush garlic. It's just so easy. Then when it's crushed, you just add the whole lot to the marinade, and of course you've got the salt there too, so it's not going to need any more salt. The next ingredients are, first of all, a teaspoon of turmeric powder. This is from the ginger family, and it's going to give it colour as well as flavour, so turmeric. Then I've got a fresh green chilli, and this has been deseeded and finely chopped. And here I've got a teaspoon, a heaped teaspoon of grated ginger, which has been grated on a very fine ginger grater. And next, a very oriental ingredient, which is fresh coriander. And I've got a tablespoon of chopped coriander. What I'm going to do now is just whisk the whole lot together to combine it. It begins to take on lovely colour now. And then just one more ingredient, we'll put in some freshly milled pepper because we've already got the salt in there. And now for the chicken. And what we've got here are 2 chicken breasts. All the dangerous bits have been removed, just the flesh, no fat, no skin, and they're cut into 5 pieces each, so they're quite chunky pieces. So in they go. And then I'll just give that a stir. And what you need to do now is really cover it with cling film, put it in the lowest part of the refrigerator, and leave it for as long as you can. Now, a minimum probably of about 4 hours, but really it's best overnight. What you've got to remember is the longer you leave it, the more succulent and the more flavoursome the chicken is going to taste, which is what we need if we're not having all the other nice things like fat. Right, so that's that stage. When it's finished marinating, what you need to do then is take wooden skewers, which you can buy in packets, and you need to soak the skewers for about half an hour in water. And then what's going to go on to the skewers with the chicken are these 3 ingredients here. First of all, you need half a pepper. I'm using a yellow one, but you can use any colour. And that's going to be cut into 8 pieces. And then you need an onion, and that's going to be quartered and also separated out into 8 layers like this. And this is a red onion. You can use a white one if you want to. And then you need 6 bay leaves, which are going to be snipped in half with the scissors and threaded on as well. Now we've got one that's partly assembled here, and I'm just going to finish it off. Now you start off with bay leaf, then chicken, then onion, and then pepper. And whenever I'm doing this, I always dream and I always get it in the wrong order, but it doesn't really matter, but that's the ideal order. So the last thing was a piece of chicken, so now I'm going to put on a piece of onion, then I'm going to put on a piece of pepper, then I'm going to put on a piece of bay leaf, a piece of chicken on the end, and then along with a piece of chicken, finally another piece of bay leaf. And then what you need to do is squash it up before it goes under the grill as tightly as you can with your hands at both ends, because when it goes under the grill it becomes loose, so the tighter it is to begin with, the better. Now we do have one more ingredient. I'm just going to wash my hands, which I have to tell you about, and don't all have a shock, but I'm going to use 1 teaspoon of oil, but only a teaspoon, and that's between 2 people. So if I'm trying to do low-fat cooking now, which I'm very interested in, I try to always think of oil in teaspoons, whereas I used to think of it in tablespoons. I now try and think of it in teaspoons. And 1 teaspoon of oil between 2 people isn't really very much oil. But why you need that is because the vegetables, when they go under the grill, they really don't respond very well with absolutely nothing on them. So we're just going to do that on that side, turn it over, and then do the same on the other side. And the secret of cooking brochettes, kebabs, all those things, is a very, very hot grill. So what you need to do when they're ready to cook is preheat the grill for at least 6 minutes before you start to cook them. And then you put them under the grill, give them about 10 minutes on one side, brush with the marinade, and then turn over and give them another 10 minutes on the other side. Recently I had dinner with a friend from New York, and when I told him I was doing my chapter and programme on low-fat recipes, he said, well, Delia, what we need you to come up with is something that tastes really chocolatey, that's low-fat and no sugar. And he said, if you can do that, then you have really made a breakthrough. So I'm now about to show you what I hope will be a breakthrough. I hope you're going to like it. And this is called Squidgy chocolate cakes with prunes in masala. And you start off with the actual amount of prunes that you need, which is 12. But these are a special kind of prunes. They're very squidgy and they're called vanilla prunes. They don't need any soaking. But I am soaking them because I wanted to get the masala flavour in. So I've used dry masala, 2 fluid ounces, and they've just been brought up to simmering point in a little saucepan and then put into a bowl and left to soak up the masala for as long as possible. You know, 1 day, 2 days, as long as you've got. For the actual squidgy cakes, what we've got here are 3 eggs that have been separated, and I've got the yolks in this bowl, the whites in that bowl, and I'm going to start by mixing the yolks with this, which is a tablespoon of sweetener. If you're not on a diet and you're not a diabetic, then you can use a tablespoon of sugar. Then when you've done that, we're going to add half an ounce of unsweetened pure cocoa powder, and that's going to be sifted just in case there are any lumps. So we'll just sift that, and then we're going to go in with a whisk again and just mix the cocoa in. And then when the cocoa is mixed into the egg yolks, the next thing you have to do is you have to go away now and wash the whisk really thoroughly, because any trace of the egg yolk on the whisk won't whisk the egg whites. So we're just going to go away and do that now. And what I'm going to do first of all is just take a tablespoon of the egg whites and put it into the chocolate mixture, and then just whisk with my whisk, just to slacken off the mixture. And now I'm just going to fold in the rest of the egg whites. Then when everything's folded in together, you then have ready some ramekins, and they have got the very faintest smear of flavourless oil, groundnut oil, just the faintest smear. And what I'm going to do is just fill each one with the mixture. Recipe serves 4. And you use about 3 tablespoons in each one, and then if there's any left, you just top them up a little bit. Now, they go into a preheated oven at gas mark 4 or 180 degrees, and they're going to take about 12 minutes. They come up very, very puffy like a souffle, and then what happens is you take them out of the oven and they sink. But sinking is perfectly normal, and I'm now going to show you why it's perfectly normal, because they're still very, very light and very squidgy. Remember, this is a cake, but it doesn't have any flour in it, and it's really, really very, very light and moist. It's lovely. Now we're going to make the filling, and the filling, what happens with the prunes that were soaked is that you reserve 4 as a garnish, and the rest are chopped like this. And then they're drained first, and there's just a little bit of marsala here that didn't get absorbed into the prunes. And what I'm going to do is the filling is made with 8% fromage frais, which is in my bowl here, 2 heaped tablespoons. So we're going to put the marsala in with that, and also the chopped prunes. And they're just going to be mixed together. And this is the filling that's going to go in. And I'm not a great lover of fruit with chocolate except this one. I really do think prunes and chocolate go really very, very well together. And there's 2 more ingredients to go in there. We're going to put a little bit of sweetener, this time just a teaspoonful, that's all, just to give it a slight sweetness. And also another ingredient. This is an ingredient I haven't used before, but it's been excellent, and that is chocolate extract. Now, we've had vanilla extract, this is chocolate extract. I think it's made in America, and we're going to have 1 teaspoon of chocolate extract. So that'll go in next. Right, so that's the filling. What I'm now going to do is take one of our squidgy little cakes and put the filling inside. And first of all, it's very, very delicate, so just gently slice it in half, and you can see how spongy and squidgy it is. So we'll put the bottom half there, and then we'll take a quarter of the filling and put that on top. It's roughly a sort of heaped tablespoon of filling. And then you put the top on, like that, give it a little squidge. And now put a prune. One of those soaked prunes can go on top as a garnish. And then before it goes to the table, it's just going to need one thing, and that is just a fine dusting of cocoa powder. So we'll just give it a fine dusting of cocoa powder, and all we can hope for now is we actually do have a breakthrough. Well, this is about to be the grand finale of our Waste Watcher programme, because the nice thing about this is you're not really going to believe it, but you are going to believe it because you're going to see it. We have a recipe for you for a souffle. It's called Marmalade Souffle, and it uses 6 ounces of sugar-free marmalade and egg whites, just those 2 ingredients, and you have the most spectacular souffle. No sugar in the marmalade, no fat in the egg whites, and it is just a stunner. If you're a diabetic or if you're trying to lose weight, this is your recipe. And all you do is you beat up the 5 egg whites, as I've done here, to the stiff peak stage. Then you take 1 tablespoon of egg white, a large folding spoon, and just fold that into the marmalade to slacken it off. And then the next thing you do is just gradually add the rest of the egg whites, a little bit at a time, and then you just keep folding. You have your oven preheated to 180 degrees, and I've served this when I've got friends, and if you have the egg whites all sort of separated out and waiting for you, and the marmalade waiting for you, it doesn't really take very long to just whip it up, pop it in the oven, then you can go back and have another glass of wine while you wait for them to cook. I'm sure if I weren't able to show you this, you'd never believe it could be so good. Now, I've got 6 little souffle dishes, and these are the deep kind that I'm using, or ramekins. And what I'm going to do is just fill the souffle dishes with the mixture, and the mixture should come, it's going to rise a lot, but it should sort of sit up like that in the souffle dish.